am going to go ahead and get started on our session today, and I hope you guys are ready. So our goal today through Quizlet's active learning games is to make learning fun, engaging, and active while helping our students gain a deeper connection with our content. Okay, and you know as well as I do that when our students are engaged in their learning, when they are actively involved in what we're talking about, their learning experience is going to be better, which is of course what we want for our students. So just to introduce myself to you, my name is Bethany Petty. I am a high school social studies teacher. I am coming to you live today from Farmington, Missouri, which is about an hour south of St. Louis. So I have been teaching for 15 years. In a few weeks, I'll start my 16th year teaching. I am also an educational technology professor. I get to work with pre-service teachers as they learn all of the cool things about what educational technology can offer them. And I've also written 2 books on technology in the classroom and instructional practices. I'm a blogger, and I love sharing with teachers whenever I get the chance. So I'm so pumped to work with you guys today. All right, so our goal today is to, like I said, figure out how we can use Quizlet's learning games to increase engagement and make learning fun. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I first started looking at Quizlet many years ago, I immediately thought of it as the flashcard website, right? And I'm sure you guys probably have had similar experiences with that. Whenever you see Quizlet, you go, oh, flashcards, right? But Quizlet is so much more. And I feel like every time I log in to my Quizlet account, I'm seeing more and more new things that are popping up. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be so great. I can't wait to use this with my students. So we're going to start off today by playing a game of Quizlet Live. Okay, so Quizlet has a limit on how many people can join one Quizlet Live game. So we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to launch the code, and the first, we'll say 70 people that get in will go ahead and take part in our game. And I've got right at 300 people joining us today. So if you don't get in this time, that's okay. We might have time to play another one later in the session. Okay, so to access my Quizlet deck that I want to share with you guys, of course, I'm just going to go to my library. I'm going to go to my study sets, and then so I can scroll down and find the one that I want, I'm going to choose all of my study sets. Okay, and I am so excited to share with you guys or to play this game with you. Like I said, I'm a high school social studies teacher. I predominantly teach American government, okay? So the one that we're going to be focusing on today is constitutional amendments. That's just the one that I pulled that we use frequently with my students, okay? So as you know, when you get to a Quizlet deck page, you're going to see something that looks like this. Of course, you've got your flashcards option that you can do. You can do learn, test. Those are also features that you'll be able to share with your students if you invite them to your class. And I know we've got a couple of different sessions dealing with how you can launch your classes and things like that. Match is a big favorite, and Q chat is going to be one that we get to later today. I'm telling you, that one's going to knock your socks off. Okay, so we're going to start off here with just the classic live. And you guys know that if you have experience with Quizlet Live, you know that we can do a random teams or we can play individually. I'm going to go ahead, obviously, for our purposes today and launch our individual option. And then we've got 2 different ways that we can figure out how we want to launch our game, right? Do we want to have the combination of questions with the definition listed and then the answer options available below? Or do you want to make it a little harder and have the question or the amendment in this case with the options listed below? I'm going to go ahead and do our definition first. And here we go. And just so I can hear myself think, I'm going to go ahead and mute my site. But those of you that are joining right now, you are popping on to play Constitutional Amendments Quizlet Live. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. And as we're playing this game, I'm just going to kind of walk through kind of what I would be thinking about as a teacher as I'm getting data back from you guys. So if you are on a computer, of course, you guys know that you can go to Quizlet.live and then you can type this code in. If you are using the app, all you've got to do is open up your cell phone, scan your code, and you can join there as well. You can also share the game link with your students. So if you have especially younger learners who may not easily follow those multi-step processes of going to Quizlet.live and then typing in this code, you could easily share that with them through Google Classroom or whatever learning management system that you use to avoid them having to do all of those different things. Okay, so now I've got 78 players, 79, 80 players. Oh my gosh, 81, okay, and 85 is our magic number, okay? So now this is the really fun part. For my students, we'd like to see which animal that we get. Like I said, I teach high school juniors and seniors. These kids are 16, 17, 18 years old. And we always love to see who will be going up against the hedgehogs. Will it be the pandas? Will it be the puffins? Will it be the kangaroos? We also like seeing the unicorns that pop up and the dragons, and it's just so much fun. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and launch our game. Okay. To do that, I'm just going to hit start. And this is what we see, okay? So on your screen, you're going to see the definitions of those amendments. And then instead of having the term, like for a vocabulary term, you're going to have numbers, okay? So on your description, if it says something like limited American presidents to serving only 2 terms or a total of 10 years in office, that's going to be the 22nd Amendment, okay? So as the teacher, I'm walking around and I'm maybe watching my students kind of have that good intellectual struggle with their understanding. Maybe I need to jump in and help. Maybe they just need me to help coax some stuff out of them. And I'm also going around and I'm watching, oh, the reindeer, they were on such a roll. I'm watching all of my students as they progress through the content. And that's one of the coolest things for me as a teacher about Quizlet Live is that I can watch my students progress through the content, but I know that this idea of mastery learning is being promoted, because if they miss one, they've got to go all the way back to the beginning, right? And the kangaroos and the sea dragons, they are feeling that pretty hardcore right now, I'm sure. So it looks like we've got a race between the kangaroos. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? And our big winner is... No, thanks. We don't want to do that. Our big winner is Linda of the kangaroos, followed quickly by kangaroos number 2 and dolphins. So yay, Linda. So next thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to continue to stats. And this is so incredibly helpful for teachers. We know that we use our data, instructional data, to drive decision-making. And this is exactly what we're looking for, right? Whenever you finish playing a game of Quizlet Live, you get all of this data back that says, what should we study? What we learned, what we know, right? So what should we study? We need to review the 10th Amendment and the 8th Amendment. Fantastic. 14th and 16th, they're both teens. That could be confusing. All of this different stuff. And I'm getting this as soon as my students finish this game, right? So I have that immediate data to drive my instruction. And while I'm getting all of that information, you as my students, you're just having fun, right? You're answering questions and you are competing against your peers, right? So Quizlet Live is, I feel like, one of the cornerstones of my classroom, and we use it in a whole bunch of different ways. And now I want to share with you some of those ways, some of those ideas to maybe use Quizlet Live in different ways, okay? So before we get to that, though, I just want to remind you, and I showed you in our Quizlet Live game, about the additional Quizlet features, right? So we've got some other great study tools that our students can utilize. Learn, use this feature to study terms for short or long-term memory. And I love using Learn because it really does help my students kind of hone in, okay, what's my goal here? What am I going to do? And what kind of retention am I going to get from this activity? test is also a really great one, because instead of just having true or false questions or multiple choice questions, you can use a variety of different questions. And with test, Quizlet is going to give us the option to do a whole bunch of different things with the content, right? So maybe you've got the true false down for the amendments or the types of government or whatever, but maybe you need to be able to type a paragraph response or something like that. Maybe you need an opportunity to flesh out those ideas. Okay. So with match, this is another fun one, because if you log in and if your students log in, you can kind of compete against each other. Your students can compete against each other on match, basically to quickly connect the terms and the definitions from the deck that you share with them. And it's always fun the first time that I do this match game with my students, because lo and behold, somebody is going to try to beat me, right? So it's a fun activity that we can do. All right, so now we're going to get into some different ideas, different classroom ideas that you can use with Quizlet Live or with Checkpoint, okay? So a couple of years ago, when my students were reviewing for one of our big state tests, they said, how can we earn some bonus points? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't really love the idea of bonus points, but I'm like, what do you think? What's something that we could do? And one of my students said, could we make our own Quizlet decks? And I was like, that's a great idea. And now it's almost like second nature for them, which I love for a couple of reasons. One, because it's getting them into the habit of saying, okay, I need to review this, right? This is something that I need to spend some time on. But it's also getting them in the habit of recognizing, hey, I need to do this. No one else is out there going to do it for me. I need to take that upon myself and take a little bit of responsibility, right? So I love that's come from this. One thing I will say about when your students create their own decks, I always encourage them to use their own descriptions and terms whenever they create their deck, right? Because we know that Quizlet can give us these wonderful, very thorough explanations of different terms that we're utilizing. And that may be what you want your students to do for how you are using Quizlet in your classroom. But sometimes it's nice to kind of get them to type out their own ideas, right? Their own definition, because that's one of those things that's going to help it stick a little bit more. We also love using Quizlet for entrance and exit slips. Where as a teacher, I'm always looking for different ways to engage my students and hook them right away when they come into the classroom. And using Quizlet Live for an entrance or an exit slip is a really, really easy way to do that. And depending on what age level that you teach, what kind of devices you have in your classroom, you could have a Quizlet code displayed on your projector. As soon as students walk in, they jump right away to Quizlet Live, and they're immediately engaged in that game that they see as a game, but what you know is helping them review content and helping them maybe refresh and focus their energy. Maybe they just came from science and you're all of a sudden saying, hey, I need you to focus on social studies, or they came from English and maybe they're going to science and you're like, hey, I need you to totally shift gears. So with using Quizlet Live as an entrance or an exit slip, that's one way that we can do that. One of the really fun things that we started doing a few years ago was the Quizlet relay race. And I was kind of hesitant to do this, but it was something that popped into my head and I was like, okay, we're going to give it a whirl. We're going to see how it goes. And this was fantastic. My students, whenever we do this Quizlet relay race, they're in groups or small groups, 4 to 5, and we have one device per group, okay? And instead of using the group feature on Quizlet Live or the team feature, I just launched an individual game, okay? So each team is going to have one device, and then in order to answer the questions, they have to get in a line behind that one device, and everybody answers one question at a time. Okay, so it's just like a relay race that you maybe did in gym, right? And it's really, really fun because depending on the parameters that we've set out in our classroom for that day, we might be able to ask for help. It might be something like kind of like a family feud game where a whole bunch of people behind you can say, yes, 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 this is the correct answer. Or it might be a silent relay race, which is really kind of eerie to behold in the classroom when your students are frantically trying to communicate with their peers, but they can't say anything. It's so fun. And this Quizlet relay race is a really fun way to make sure that everyone is involved in that learning process, right? Sometimes, depending on what kind of activity we're doing, you might see, especially in group activities, you might see one student kind of gravitate to being the leader and everyone else just kind of pushing their devices to them and saying, yeah, go for it. You hit all the buttons, you do all the things. And that's not what we want as teachers, right? We want all of our students to be engaged in learning. So the Quizlet relay race is super fun. Another thing that we've done periodically throughout the year, especially if we're in the middle of reviewing for a big test, or we just need to kind of have a pause to make sure that everybody's on the same page before moving forward, is a review station. And I'm a huge fan of stations in the classroom. I love getting my students to get up and move around. I feel like that really helps increase that engagement. So with the Quizlet review stations, again, we're using Quizlet Live. We're using this one game, and we're using it in so many different ways. So instead of launching a whole class session for this, you could launch a game of Quizlet Live or Checkpoint, and then you just set up stations around your classroom. So maybe you have 4 or 5 different Chromebooks or tablets or whatever kind of device you have them set up on different areas in the classroom. Your students launch the game and they review that content as they go through those different stations. Super fun. And the last thing I want to show you guys, and this is definitely something that you're going to get really excited about. If you've been paying attention to the news, to social media, to education, I mean, anything, it seems like all anybody's talking about is AI, right? And Quizlet has given us this really cool AI tool to use with the flashcards that we love them so much for. And it's called QChat. And QChat is something that the first time I jumped on there was only one thing available. And now there are just so many different options that are popping up. And I really want to make sure that everyone is aware of this. You're going to love it. Your students are going to love it. It's fantastic. Okay. So to access QChat, I'm just going to pop right back over here to that same deck that we used. Remember, we've got our flashcards, we've got Learn, Test, Match, Checkpoint, but I'm going to click on QChat. Okay. And this is one of those things that I maybe didn't mention this when I introduced myself, but I'm also a mom. I have 2 daughters. They are in 5th grade and 7th grade. And this is going to be right up their alley for reviewing content this year. So you select your QChat and it says, hey there, Quizlet is now using the power of AI to help you study more effectively. Let's get started. Looks like you're studying constitutional amendments. Please select an activity. So what do we want? What do we want to do? Do we want to quiz? Do we want to apply my knowledge? Tell me a fun fact or skip? I want to quiz. Okay. So what amendment granted suffrage to African-American males? I can either say, I don't know. Give me a hint. Next question. I'm going to guess wrong, and I'm going to say 10. Okay. And Quizlet says, ooh, incorrect, try again. Okay, so the right one is 15. Fantastic. Next question. What amendment granted suffrage to women? That was 19. Fantastic. That's correct. Great job. Next question. What amendment lowered the voting age from 21 to 18? That's going to be, oops, wrong button, 26. Okay. And then we move on through that question. Okay. So I'm going to pause for just a second. I did see a couple of questions pop up there. Okay. Lots of cool. There we go. Whoops. There we go. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Okay. So if I'm ready to move on to a different set, I can always just hit start a new chat, or I can hit the X. Or if I want to jump up here and do something different, I'm going to go to apply my knowledge. Okay. So sure, here's an application and understanding question for you. How does the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution impact the concept of citizenship? Whoa, right? So that really takes it up a whole nother level. So I'm going beyond that just recall or identification level, and I'm going all the way up to explaining and applying what I know about that. So let's try it out. So how does the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution impact the concept of citizenship? So I would say this amendment grants citizenship, so I can type, I promise, to everyone who is born or naturalized in the United States. Okay, let's see what it says. That's correct. The 14th Amendment indeed grants citizenship to individuals who are born or naturalized in the United States. So building on a previous discussion, so we're moving on from the 14th Amendment, building on that to something else. Can you explain what the 15th Amendment to the United States entails? So then I would just go on and I would describe again how that specific amendment is going to impact citizenship. Okay. So that is the Q chat feature. And it is in beta, so you might see a few things pop up and then go away, and then maybe some other new stuff pops up, and then we're almost constantly seeing how that plays out. So Elaine, did you see how I answered that one incorrectly and how it corrected me right away? Oh, good try. Try again. Okay. So Hilda, the questions and answers beforehand, all that is it's a Quizlet deck. Okay, so if I wanted to go back through and launch any of my study sets, so let's go to cells. That sounds like fun. Okay, so all the Q chat is doing is it's using AI to kind of generate questions and like a conversation around what I've already created. Okay, so if I just go here to my cell membrane or my cell question here, Q chat, I'm going to say apply my knowledge, and here we go. So sure, here's an application question for you. How does the process of photosynthesis benefit other organisms in an ecosystem? Ooh, that is a great question. I could say, give me a hint. So photosynthesis involves the use of energy from the sun to produce food. Think about how this food source can be beneficial to other organisms. So I could say photosynthesis helps generate food. We'll see what happens there. Ooh. Okay, that's correct. Photosynthesis is the process through which that happens. Awesome. I can also, this is a fun one that I really like to play around with. Tell me a fun fact, right? So tell me a fun fact. Did you know that bacterial cells can divide and produce new cells in just 20 minutes? Amazing. That's fantastic, right? So I have seen a couple of questions pop up here. How would I use this in the classroom? Is this something that I would do for my students individually, or would I launch this as a whole class activity? And my answer to that would be either one, whatever you want to do, right? So if I am, let's say that maybe we have 5 minutes left in class, and I want to make sure I'm using all of my class time effectively. And I want to do something that's going to keep my students' engagement high as our class period ends. So instead of launching Quizlet Live, maybe I pull up one of our flashcard decks and I launch a Q chat, right? So as a class, we could sit around and we could review that way, or I could have my students work in small groups, right? I could have them work individually. One of my favorite things to do with all of my Quizlet decks is, and this is something I'm sure a lot of you probably do as well, in my classroom, right as you walk out the door, I have an important information board, right? So I can really easily share this activity, this Quizlet deck with my students. I can either share it in like my Google Classroom section, or if you are a QR code person at all, you could very easily create a QR code that links directly to this deck, and your students can scan it with their device as they walk out the door, and boom, they've got that there for you. Okay, so I'm going to check the Q&A again. Okay, let's see. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. I love it. I love it. Okay. Okay, so I'm just checking over here. Just getting some feedback. Yep, yep. Okay. There we go. Okay, so you like the Quizlet Live for exit and entrance tickets. That is fantastic. Absolutely. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right. Well, everyone, we just have a few more minutes. So I just want to review a couple of the topics that we talked about here. So we have different ways that you can use Quizlet Live in the classroom. We've talked about those additional Quizlet features of Learn, Test, and Match. We talked about the amazing tool that is QChat. And like I said, it's one of those things that every time you log on, it's just, it seems like it's going to be getting better and better. And I am so excited to see what Quizlet gives us next, what kind of gifts we're going to be given to use in the school year. Okay, so with that information, I will leave you with my contact information. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Bethany_Petty, Instagram at Bethany Petty _educate. You can shoot me an email at bethany@bethanypetty.com. I'm also on Threads and Facebook and TikTok and all of the things. So I hope you enjoyed our session today. I hope it kind of started getting your creative juices flowing for the school year and thinking about all of the different ways that you can use Quizlet to increase engagement and play some really awesome learning games with your students. So again, thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. See ya.